The man at the funeral looked just like me. Then he said my wife's name. The casket was closed, which was a mercy. I stood in the third row of folding chairs at the funeral home, hands folded in my lap, watching the minister speak words I could not hear over the hum in my skull. Sarah had been gone 3 weeks. Cancer, swift and without negotiation, 62 years of marriage reduced to a polished box and a room that smelled of lilies and furniture polish. I felt the weight of my own hands, the stiffness in my knuckles, the way my wedding band had worn a groove into my finger that would never flatten. That was when I saw him. He stood at the back near the guest book, a man in a dark suit with his hands clasped in front of him, gray hair trimmed close, a jaw that angled the same way mine did. The resemblance stopped me cold. It was like looking into a mirror that showed me as I might have been with a different barber, a different tailor. He was watching me, not the casket. His eyes held mine with an intensity that made my chest tighten. I looked away, looked back. He was still there. The minister finished. People rose. I stayed seated because standing required a decision, and I had none left in me. Mourners filed past, touching my shoulder, murmuring things I nodded at. My daughter Claire stood beside me, her hand on my back. I kept my gaze on the stranger. He had not moved. When the room thinned, he walked toward me. His gait was measured, deliberate. He stopped 3 feet away. Claire tensed beside me. He said, "Sarah," just her name, spoken quietly, with a familiarity that did not belong to a stranger. I stood. My knees protested, but I ignored them. "Who are you?" He studied me for a long moment, and I watched something like sorrow move across his face. "My name is Thomas Brennan. I think we need to talk." Claire stepped forward. "Dad, do you know him?" "No," I said, but even as I said it, unease coiled in my stomach. Thomas looked at Claire, then back to me. "Not here. Not now, but soon." He pulled a card from his jacket pocket and held it out. I took it. Plain white, a phone number written in blue ink. "When you're ready," he said. Then he turned and walked out. I am a man who builds his days on routine. I wake at 6. I make coffee in the same pot Sarah and I received as a wedding gift, now held together with electrical tape. I read the newspaper at the kitchen table, folding each section with care. After she died, I continued this. It was the only architecture I had left. The card sat on the table for 2 days, face down. Claire called every morning. She wanted me to move in with her and her husband. She used the word temporary, but I heard permanence underneath. I told her I was fine. She did not believe me, but she was kind enough not to argue. On the 3rd morning, I turned the card over. The number stared back. I dialed it before I could think. He answered on the 2nd ring. "This is Thomas." "It's me," I said. From the funeral, a pause. "I hoped you'd call. You knew my wife." "I knew her a long time ago," he said. "Oh, before you did." The kitchen was very quiet. Outside, a dog barked twice and stopped. "What do you want?" I asked. "To give you something she wanted you to have. Meet me tomorrow. There's a diner on Route 9, just past the hardware store, 1 o'clock. "Why should I?" "Because you've been looking at me for 3 days trying to figure out why I look the way I do," he said. His voice was calm, factual. "And because Sarah told me you deserved the truth." He hung up. I sat there with the receiver in my hand until the dial tone became a recorded voice telling me to hang up and try again. The diner was the kind of place that had been remodeled in 1987 and left alone since. Vinyl booths, a counter with fixed stools, a laminated menu that offered breakfast all day. I arrived 10 minutes early and took a booth near the window. The waitress brought coffee without asking. Thomas arrived exactly at 1. He slid into the seat across from me and folded his hands on the table. Up close, the resemblance was even more pronounced. The shape of his nose, the way his eyebrows drew together, the small scar above his left eye that mirrored one I had gotten in a childhood fall. "Thank you for coming," he said. I said nothing. I waited. He reached into his coat and pulled out a manila envelope, set it between us. "Sarah gave this to me 6 months ago. She made me promise to give it to you after she passed. She said you'd need time to grieve first, but not too much time. You saw her 6 months ago. I've seen her regularly for the past 40 years, he said. Every few months. Coffee, usually. Sometimes lunch. She never told you. The coffee in my cup had gone cold. I did not touch the envelope. Who are you? I said again. He met my eyes. I'm your brother. The word hung in the air between us. I felt it land in my chest like a stone. That's not possible. I don't have a brother. I was an only child. You were told you were an only child, Thomas said. Our mother had me when she was 17, unmarried. Her parents sent her away, arranged an adoption. She went back home, finished school, married your father 5 years later, had you. She never told anyone. I stared at him. My mother wouldn't. She did. His voice was gentle but firm. Sarah found out by accident. She and your mother were close, you remember. Your mother told her before she died. Made her swear not to tell you while she was alive. Your mother was afraid of what you'd think of her. My hands were shaking. I put them in my lap. Sarah found me, Thomas continued. Hired someone, tracked me down. She wanted to meet me, see if I was, I don't know, worth knowing. We met for coffee. We talked. She told me about you, about your life together. She said she wanted to tell you, but she'd made a promise. So we kept meeting. She became, I guess you'd say, a friend. The closest thing I had to family. Why didn't she tell me after my mother died? She tried. You remember that summer 10 years ago? She kept starting conversations, then stopping. She said you weren't ready, that you'd been through too much already that year. He paused. Your company had just let you go. She didn't want to add more weight. I did remember. The layoff had come without warning after 30 years. Sarah had been steady through all of it, never pushing, never demanding I be anything other than what I was. Open the envelope, Thomas said. I pulled it toward me, slid my finger under the flap. Inside was a letter in Sarah's handwriting, 2 photographs and a birth certificate. I unfolded the letter first. Her script was shaky, written in the last weeks, but unmistakably hers. My dearest love. If you're reading this, Thomas has done what I asked. I'm sorry to tell you this way, but I ran out of time to tell you in person, and I was always a coward about difficult things. Your mother had a son before you, Thomas. She gave him up because she had no choice, and it broke something in her that never quite healed. She told me 2 days before she died. Made me swear not to tell you while she lived. I kept that promise, but I couldn't let you go your whole life not knowing you had a brother. I found him. He's a good man, kind, steady. Lonely, I think, though he'd never say so. He reminds me of you in ways that made me ache. I met with him over the years, got to know him. I wanted to tell you so many times. I should have. He deserves to know you. You deserve to know him. I'm sorry I waited too long. Please don't be angry with him. He only did what I asked. You've always been the best part of my life. I hope this can be a gift, not a burden. All my love. Sarah. I set the letter down carefully, picked up the photographs. The first was old, black and white, edges soft with age, a young woman holding an infant. I recognized my mother's face, decades younger, her eyes full of something I'd never seen in her before. Grief, maybe, or resignation. The second photograph was recent. Sarah and Thomas at a coffee shop, both smiling. She looked happy. The birth certificate listed my mother's maiden name. The father's name was blank. The child's name, Thomas Michael Brennan. I looked up. Thomas was watching me with an expression I couldn't name. I don't know what to do with this, I said. You don't have to do anything, he said. I'm not here to ask anything of you. Sarah thought you should know, that's all. She lied to me for 40 years. She kept a secret, Thomas said. There's a difference. She did it because she loved your mother and because she didn't want to hurt you. And you? What do you want? He was quiet for a moment. Then he said, I wanted to meet you, to see if we had anything in common besides blood. Sarah talked about you all the time. You sounded like someone I'd like to know. I folded the letter, put everything back in the envelope, stood. My legs felt unsteady. I need time, I said. Take all the time you need, Thomas said. I'll be here. I walked out into the parking lot. The sun was too bright. I sat in my car for 20 minutes before I trusted myself to drive. That night, I laid everything out on the kitchen table. The letter, the photographs, the birth certificate. I read the letter 3 more times. Each time, Sarah's voice was clearer in my head, and each time I felt the same things warring inside me: betrayal, grief, confusion, and underneath it all, something else. Curiosity, maybe. Or loneliness. I'd spent 2 months alone in this house. Claire visited, but she had her own life. My friends had drifted after retirement. Sarah had been my constant. Now she was gone, and I was unmoored. I picked up the photograph of Sarah and Thomas, studied his face, tried to see my mother in him, tried to see myself. I called Claire. "Dad, it's late. Are you okay?" "I need to tell you something," I said. She listened without interrupting while I explained. When I finished, she was quiet for a long time. "This is insane," she said finally. "I know. Do you believe him? I saw the birth certificate, Mom's signature, and the photographs. But why didn't Mom tell you? Why did she tell Sarah and not you?" "I think she was ashamed," I said, "or afraid I'd think less of her." "That's ridiculous. You loved Grandma." "People carry things," I said. "Sometimes the weight gets too heavy to share." Another silence. Then Claire said, "What are you going to do?" "I don't know yet. Do you want me to come over?" "No, I'm all right. I just needed to tell someone." "Okay, but call me tomorrow. Promise." "I promise." I hung up, sat in the dark. Outside, the street was empty. A car passed, its headlights sweeping across the walls. I thought about my mother. She had been a quiet woman, careful with affection, precise with words. She had kept house with a meticulousness that bordered on severity. I had thought it was simply her nature. Now I wondered what else she had been keeping at bay. I slept poorly. In the morning, I made coffee, read the paper, went through the motions, but my mind kept circling back to Thomas, to the way he had looked at me, to the fact that for 67 years I had believed myself to be alone in a way I was not. I waited 3 days. Then I called him. "It's me," I said. "I didn't think I'd hear from you so soon." "I want to know more," I said. "About you, about how Sarah found you, all of it." "All right," he said. "Where do you want to meet?" "My house, tomorrow, 10 o'clock. I gave him the address. "I'll be there." I spent the evening cleaning. I'm not a messy man, but the house had accumulated a certain neglect since Sarah died. I vacuumed. I dusted. I put away the medical equipment that still sat in the corner of the bedroom. I did not know why I was preparing the house for him, but it felt necessary. He arrived exactly at 10. I opened the door, and we stood looking at each other for a moment. "Come in," I said. He followed me to the kitchen. I poured coffee. We sat across from each other at the same table where Sarah and I had eaten breakfast for decades. "Tell me about your life," I said. He did. He had grown up in Ohio, adopted by a couple who owned a hardware store. They had been kind but distant. He'd gone to college, studied engineering, worked for a utility company for 35 years. He had married once, divorced after a decade. No children. He lived alone now, in a small house 2 towns over from mine. "When Sarah found you, what did you think?" I asked. "I thought she was lying," he said. "Or crazy. I'd spent 50 years thinking I came from nothing, that my birth parents didn't want me. Then this woman shows up and tells me I have a brother, a family, a history. It took time to accept." "Did you ask her why she didn't just tell me?" "Many times. She always said the same thing, that she'd made a promise and that you weren't ready." He paused. "I think she was also protecting herself. If she told you and you were angry at her for keeping it secret, she'd lose you. She couldn't risk that." "She wouldn't have lost me. She didn't know that." We drank our coffee. The clock on the wall ticked. "What did you talk about?" I asked. "All those times you met?" "Everything. Nothing. You, mostly. She loved talking about you. The way you fixed things around the house even when you didn't need to. How you still left her notes on the counter after 60 years. The trip you took to the coast for your anniversary. She made you sound, I don't know, like someone I'd want to know." I felt my throat tighten. I looked away. "I'm sorry," Thomas said. "I didn't mean to." "It's fine," I said, but my voice was rough. We talked for another hour. He told me about his work, his hobbies. He liked woodworking. He had a small shop in his garage where he built furniture. He showed me a photograph on his phone of a table he'd made, walnut with inlaid maple. It was beautiful. "I'd like to see your shop sometime," I said. He looked surprised. "Yeah, anytime." When he left, I felt lighter and more confused than ever. Over the next 2 weeks, we met 3 more times. Once at his house, where he showed me his workshop and we sanded a piece of cherry together. Once at a park, where we walked and talked about our childhoods. Once at a diner, where we ate eggs and bacon and discovered we both took our coffee the same way. But doubt crept in during the quiet hours. I found myself pulling out the birth certificate at night, studying it under the lamp. The paper was real enough, but papers could be forged. I thought about the things people do for money, for attention, for reasons that make sense only to them. I called the county records office. A woman with a patient voice looked up the certificate number. "Yes, we have that on file. Issued in 1958. Would you like a certified copy?" "No," I said, "thank you." I hung up feeling ashamed and relieved in equal measure. The following week I drove to the library. I had never been good with computers, but the librarian was kind. She showed me how to search newspaper archives. I found my mother's high school graduation announcement, June 1957. I counted backward. Thomas had been born in March 1958. The timeline fit. I found her wedding announcement to my father, October 1962. I was born in 1963. Everything Thomas had told me aligned with the public record, but still, I needed more. I went through the boxes in the attic. Sarah had saved everything, organized by decade in banker's boxes with labels in her precise handwriting. I found my mother's things in a box marked Evelyn, personal. Letters, mostly. A few pieces of jewelry. A small leather diary with a broken clasp. I opened the diary. The entries were sparse, dated from 1957 to 1959. Most were mundane, shopping lists, appointment reminders. But one entry, dated April 1958, stopped me. "He's gone now. They took him this morning. I held him for 10 minutes. They said it was better this way. Better for whom?" My hands shook. I closed the diary and sat on the attic floor for a long time. That evening I called Thomas. "I need to apologize." "For what?" "I've been checking your story, the birth certificate, the dates, my mother's diary. I didn't trust you and I'm sorry." He was quiet. Then he said, "I'd have done the same thing. You don't know me. You're protecting yourself. There's no shame in that." "Still, I'm sorry." Apology accepted. "For what it's worth, I checked you out too. Found your old company's website, some articles about projects you'd worked on. I needed to know you were real, not just someone Sarah had invented to make me feel less alone." We both laughed a little. The tension broke. "So we're even?" I asked. "We're even." With each meeting after that, the strangeness faded. He was easy to be around. He listened more than he spoke. He had a dry sense of humor that reminded me of my own. And yes, the resemblance was undeniable. We moved the same way, gestured the same way, laughed the same way. Claire met him the 3rd week. She was wary at first, watching him like he might be a con man. But by the end of lunch, she was asking him about his woodworking, telling him about her kids. When we left, she pulled me aside. "He seems nice," she said. "He is. Do you believe him? That he's really your brother?" "I do." She nodded slowly. "Okay. Then I'm glad you found him. Or that he found you. I'm glad you're not alone." I hadn't thought of it that way, but she was right. I had been alone. And now I wasn't. But there was still a knot in my chest that wouldn't loosen. A question I couldn't let go of. One evening, I called Thomas. "Can I ask you something?" "Of course." "Did you ever resent her, Sarah, for keeping you a secret from me all those years?" He was quiet. Then he said, "At first, yeah, I thought it was cruel. But the more I got to know her, the more I understood. She was caught between 2 promises, to your mother and to you. She did what she thought was right. And honestly, I think waiting was the right call. If she'd told you 30 years ago, would you have believed her? Would you have wanted to meet me? Or would you have thought she was betraying your mother's memory?" I thought about that. About who I'd been 30 years ago, busy, distracted, wrapped up in work and routine. "I don't know," I said. "Exactly. Timing matters. She waited until you were ready, even if she didn't get to see it. I wish I could thank her. I think she knows." We hung up. I sat in the dark for a while, feeling the weight of it all settle into something manageable. A month after the funeral, I went to the cemetery. I hadn't been since the burial. I knelt by Sarah's headstone, brushed away the leaves that had gathered at the base. I met him, I said quietly. Thomas. He's good. You were right about him. The wind moved through the trees. I'm angry at you, for not telling me. But I understand why you didn't. I think I do anyway. I stayed there for a long time, talking to her the way I used to talk to her in the kitchen, about the small things, the way the leaves were changing, the way Claire's youngest had started school, the way I'd finally fixed the drip in the bathroom sink. When I stood to leave, I felt something shift. Not forgiveness exactly, but acceptance. Thomas and I kept meeting, once a week, then twice. We fell into a rhythm. He taught me woodworking. I taught him how to make Sarah's lasagna, the recipe she'd perfected over decades. We watched baseball games. We argued about politics in the mild, non-committal way men our age do. One afternoon, he asked if I wanted to help him build a bookshelf for Claire. I said yes. We spent 3 weekends in his garage, measuring, cutting, sanding. The work was meditative. We didn't talk much, but the silence was comfortable. When it was finished, we delivered it together. Claire cried when she saw it. You two made this? We did, Thomas said. She hugged him. It was quick, awkward, but genuine. I saw something in his face I hadn't seen before. Relief, maybe, or belonging. On the drive home, I said, thank you. For what? For not giving up on me, for being patient. He glanced at me. You're my brother. There was nothing to give up on. That night, I pulled out the envelope Sarah had left me. Read the letter one more time. This time I didn't feel anger. I felt gratitude. She had given me a gift. Not just the truth, but a connection I hadn't known I needed. I thought about the life I'd built with her. 62 years of mornings and evenings and small kindnesses. She had kept one secret, but she had given me everything else, her time, her patience, her love. And in the end, she had given me Thomas. I put the letter back in the envelope, filed it away in the drawer where I kept the important things, birth certificates, marriage license, photographs. The next day, I called Thomas. I'm making lasagna tonight. Want to come over? Yeah, he said. I'd like that. He arrived at 6. We ate at the kitchen table, the same table where Sarah and I had shared thousands of meals. We talked about small things, the weather, his latest project, a book we'd both read. After dinner, we sat on the porch. The air was cool. The street was quiet. This feels right, I said. Thomas nodded. It does. We sat there until the light faded. 2 old men who looked like mirrors, learning to be brothers. Sarah had been right. Timing mattered. And this now was the right time.